G'day listeners, you're listening to the weekly Dartscast podcast with your co-host Alex Moss and Brenton Lloyd. Here in Australia, we like to call something bonzo if it's awesome or it's great. So when you listen to the weekly Dartscast, you're listening to a bonzo show. They have amazing guests, awesome interviews, and they'll give you all the ins and outs of the darts that you'll need this week. So sit back, relax, and it's time to get into it. Oh, check that out. 180. You beauty, mate.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, just with a quick intro before we get into the show. Just myself this week. I was off last week. This week it is my co-host Brenton Lloyd. He's got work commitments, so we're going to bring you 4 guests on the show this week. All are going to be involved in some way in the World Series of Darts over the next 2 weekends. The World Series going down under to New Zealand and Australia over the next 2 weekends. First of all, in New Zealand this weekend, and our first guest, Ben Francis, used to host a radio show all about darts in New Zealand, At The Oche. He's now involved with darts. He's got his own YouTube channel and he's going to be talking to the players this weekend. So we've got Ben on to talk a little bit about darts in New Zealand. Then we're going to move on to 3 players that are going to be involved over the next 2 weeks in the World Series. First of all, he's back on the show after a 3-year hiatus. When we spoke to him 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago probably now, he was in the UK and he was a PDC tour card holder. Darren Penhall, he's moved back to Australia, and what a year that he's had so far, winning 11, yes that's right, 11 DPA Pro Tour titles. It's got him into these World Series events, and he's going to be coming back to the UK at the end of the year. He's going to be making his debut at Ali Pali in the PDC World Championship. So you're going to hear from Darren later on in the show. You're also going to hear from 2 players that are going to be involved in the second World Series event down under. They're going to be involved in the New South Wales Darts Masters. That's coming up next week. You're going to hear from Joe Comito. He was on the show last year ahead of his debut in the World Series. We've got him back on to look back on that debut and also look ahead to getting that second crack on the big stage. And then you're going to hear from one of his teammates in Western Australia. You're going to hear from a player that is going to be making their debut this year, and that is Brenton Lloyd. Lloydie, as his nickname is. Maybe we're going to call him the Australian Jaws. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. So yeah, 4 great guests to bring you on the show. Ben Francis, Darren Penhall, Joe Comito and Brenton Lloyd. And let's kick things off with Ben Francis. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former host of the SENZ radio's At The Oche Dart Show, all the way from New Zealand, Ben Francis. Thanks for the time, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thank you very much for having me. Great to be joining a great list of Kiwis who have been on your show before.
Yeah, it's great to get you on, and there's lots to talk about. The New Zealand Darts Masters is almost here. We've got to talk about your darts show At The Oche, but before then, for our listeners who are new to the darts scene in New Zealand, they don't know too much about you. Just give us a background on yourself. What do you do, and also how did you get into darts?
So I kind of got into darts, I think, by a lot of people down this part of the world, just by seeing it on the TV initially. We're going back probably, I'd say about 13 years. There was only really the World Champs on, so I used to watch that with a lot of intrigue, and you always used to see the players up there and the skill that they possessed, and initially you're just like, wow, people watch, you just go to like a bar, for example, and someone throws darts, and then you see it on the TV, and these guys on the TV make it look so easy, and people are then like, oh, I could do that, but it's actually a lot harder than you realise. So I kind of got into it a bit of that back then, and slowly as I progressed through doing media, I got a few opportunities to really talk about darts and share people's stories in darts. So that's kind of how I really kind of got into that side of things. And I tried to get out and play myself, but not that good. But yeah, I always enjoy talking to the guys locally, and especially with the Darts Masters coming up, it's always real awesome. When you get the best down here, it's probably one of the real times as well that I get real starstruck is being in the presence of some of these guys, because to me they are like sporting superstars in their own right. So I'm really looking forward to that coming out. But yeah, that's kind of my sort of involvement in darts. I started writing a bit about it 5 years ago, I think it was. Just started off interviewing some of the local guys, and then it slowly expanded into some of the guys in the PDC. So it's been great talking to so many people involved in darts locally and internationally.
Excellent. And I was looking at your Twitter bio as well. It mentions that you love the darts, but it also mentions your support for a few other sports teams, the New Zealand Warriors and two others, which I've got to say caught me a little bit by surprise, the Scotland rugby team and Bradford City, the English football club. So how did you become a fan of those two teams?
Well, my family's Scottish, firstly, so that's where my loyalty for Scotland lies. I'm not a big fan of the All Blacks, which not very patriotic of me being from here, but I do enjoy watching Scotland rugby. Look, Bradford was a bit of an interesting one. Look, you got so many people over here that support some of the big clubs, some of the big six, and I remember it was back, I think it was 2011, 2012. We just got cable TV essentially, and I was watching the football, and Bradford were playing Arsenal in the League Cup. Bradford went on to win that, and it was kind of just one of those cool moments, and just being able to see it, and I kind of liked the club and kind of what it stood for, so I kind of threw my support in around that period. And they've had a few ups and downs during that period as well. They've were on the cusp of League Two in terms of the Championship second division, but I'm hoping they have a good year this year, because boy, they've got good goal scorer there in Andy Cook. But we'll see how they go. It's not always easy to watch, English football from this side of the world, especially fourth division. But I do my best to follow that as well. But yeah, those are two teams I really enjoy, and along with the Warriors as well. And it's even better this year with the Warriors because of how well they're going.
Well, I can relate to the life of a Bradford fan. Cards on the table. I'm a Colchester United fan, and I've just moved up north, so I'm about an hour away from Bradford. And funnily enough, earlier this week, booked a ticket for Bradford v Colchester. First time I'm going to go to Valley Parade, I think it's called. And I saw a few months back you were looking for a Bradford jersey. So how about this for a deal? When I go to the game, I'll sort you a jersey, but Colchester get the 3 points in exchange. Is that fair?
No, I might have to pass up on that one. I quite like Bradford to get up to League One, to be honest. I did get a jersey from them a few years ago, fully signed by one of the teams, which was really cool. So I got that, which hangs up in my wardrobe with some of my other little bits of sporting memorabilia.
Well, it's worth a try. Well, let's get back to the darts, and we'll talk about your radio show At The Oche. We had your co-host Ben Robb on our show just before the Worlds. We mentioned the show, and he spoke very fondly about how much he enjoyed doing it with you. And I was surprised to see that the show ended a couple of months ago. Why was that?
Firstly, I'm no longer at SENZ, so that was a bit of a contributing factor. But our main sponsor behind the show kind of wanted to take a bit of a different direction. So we've just started doing a few things with that, which is through the Dart Depot, which is a shop here in New Zealand, and we've got a YouTube page called Aim Straight. So we're just starting a different way to kind of get some darts content out there for a local audience. So we've just kind of really launched into that in the last few weeks. So yeah, it was a bit of a shame that the show ended, but I mean, it is what it is. But kind of got a little new exciting challenge there, which is possessing its own skills and different opportunities. So we'll see where that goes. Just started up, but yeah, that's kind of where that's at the moment.
Excellent. Well, yeah, we'll give a mention to your new stuff coming up, but on your old show then, I always enjoyed listening in, especially when you had players on from New Zealand, Australia, finding out a bit more about them. But you had a lot of the top PDC players on as well, and you also had Barry Hearn, the former PDC chairman. He's been a guest as well. So what were your highlights doing the show, and who was your all-time favourite guest?
I think the interview with Barry Hearn is probably by far my favourite one I did, and that's just because I've got a lot of respect for him as a person and as a businessman as well. The first chapter of his book, which I listened to, he talks about his 10 values, his 10 principles in life, and I think they're really important, and especially what he's done in the game as well. And the Hearns is, in general, in terms of what they've done for sport, is just absolutely incredible. So that was definitely a highlight for me. And I guess you kind of go back to some of the earlier shows when we got to make a couple of announcements with where that was Joe Cullen and Johnny Clayton were going to be the two extra players coming down to New Zealand, just getting the kind of opportunity to announce things like that. But from my perspective, just the opportunity to do a dart show was absolutely fantastic. I remember I pitched it to one of the sales guys, and he said he'd get back to me. And I just remember the moment he told me, and I just couldn't believe it. So even though it was only for a year, it was just such a cool opportunity and experience to do that, because it was almost like a dream, just getting the opportunity, something in a bit of mainstream media as well. So I love doing it, but hopefully this new little opportunity we're taking up works out just as good.
Definitely. And you and Ben, you signed off the last episode with some predictions for upcoming events. You went for Michael Smith to go for back-to-back world titles. Ben was tipping Steve Beaton for a second world title. But let's touch on Michael Smith, the world number one, the world champion, recently signing with Shot Darts, a darts manufacturer based in New Zealand. So what impact has that move had on darts in New Zealand, the interest with the world's top player joining?
Yeah, I think for Shot, firstly, I think it was massive for the company, and I think it was one of those ones where it was a real excitement to announce it, because it, as Michael's detailed and as Shot's detailed as well, there was the deal had kind of been struck a while ago, and there was a lot of waiting in terms of the deal getting announced. There was a lot of excitement around that, and look, I think people have reacted really well to the darts in New Zealand, and I've only heard positive comments. And I think any time that a company signs a world champion, it's a pretty big deal. In terms of overall mainstream media, I think it was quite disappointing that not as many picked up on the story, because I personally thought it was a fantastic story. But unfortunately, in a country like New Zealand, you've got things where rugby is king, and it's pretty difficult to kind of get a bit of a darts mention in there. So in terms of that, a bit disappointing, but I think from an overall darts perspective, I think the reaction within the community has been fantastic. Although I think, as you guys probably know, I think it was the worst kept secret of the sport for a very long time. Even when Michael was here last year, he grabbed my case and he said, "I'm signing a Shot next year," and it's like he couldn't keep his mouth shut himself. So quite funny, but that's just what the way some of those guys are. And it's a lot of fun, but I think that, as I say, fantastic for a New Zealand company to be sponsoring the world champion, and hopefully that partnership lasts for a while.
Yeah, definitely a big coup. And we've just had the World Match Play. We saw that you were following the action in New Zealand. Nathan Aspinall winning the title. He's going to be in the World Series events coming up. But for you guys in New Zealand, we're talking on a Saturday morning here in the UK. It's in the evening where you are. So what is the time difference like following these big tournaments live? What sort of time are the sessions on where you are?
Well, I think it all comes down to, firstly, in terms of whether it's daylight saving or not, because I think during the winter and the summer the time changes. So, but it's usually at the earliest. I mean, if you got one of these overnight sessions like you do in the World Champs, they can be on at about midnight, 1 a.m., which are a bit harder to follow. But the evening sessions, your time, they're usually around like 7 o'clock, 8 a.m. New Zealand time. So it's not too bad to follow. But I mean, for lots of people that have the standard 9 to 5, I mean, they're just probably going to log on and watch it on your streaming, or just catch up on it later. But I mean, I'm in a position where I can kind of sit down and watch it all and enjoy it. So, I mean, it's perfect for me.
Yeah, darts for your breakfast sounds pretty good to me. And during the match play, we saw the Ashes-inspired walk-ons from Damon Heta, the Australian number one. Australia, of course, have retained the Ashes now against England. So what do you think we can expect from Damon's walk-ons over the next 2 weekends?
I'm actually very curious, because I spoke to him before the World Cup and kind of asked him what he had planned, and he said he's got a few things in mind. But I mean, we all have the same thoughts on the Aussie cricket team. They're all a big bunch of cheats at the end of the day because of what's happened in the past. So I mean, hopefully when he gets here, I might have to give him a piece of sandpaper or something like that and see if he can use it on his darts or something. But yeah, that's kind of where that is. But Damon has, I think it's his dad from memory. He's part Māori, which Māori is like the indigenous culture here in New Zealand. So I mean, he could have something that does inspire him, and I think he does support the All Blacks, which is our national rugby team as well. So I mean, he could walk on stage and maybe he might do a haka because he's been moved over to the PDC representatives. He draws a Kiwi, he might whip out a haka, which might be quite cool to see. But I haven't spoken to him, so I don't know if that's what he will do. So I'm sorry if that is what he had planned, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, we're looking forward to finding out. And of course, Damon, he is a huge success story of the World Series, winning that title in Australia, then making the move here to the UK, winning a tour card, the World Cup. He's now in the top 16. So how much do you think his success has inspired the next wave of players to try and emulate him, starting with playing on the tours in Australia or New Zealand and qualifying for these World Series events?
Oh, look, I think whenever a guy like him does what he does, it always serves as a bit of inspiration for anybody that plays the sport down here. I think the hardest thing is kind of that commitment, knowing that you've got to travel to the other side of the world, pretty much give up a life here for a big unknown, and it's just incredible that it's worked out for him in the way it has. And of course, when he just moved over, I think that's really when COVID kind of really impacted the world. From a New Zealand perspective, I feel COVID really impacted the growth of darts here, and it kind of did stall a little bit because I think it was at a stage where it was really starting to grow a little bit, and then just due to our lockdowns that we had, especially in our biggest city, Auckland, that really prevented guys and girls getting out and playing darts. I don't know if Ben Robb touched on this, but his lead up to the World Champs when he played Rusty Jade, he literally had no competitive darts from August until he landed in England because of the lockdown restrictions that were in place here. And I think that had an impact on him, and that's something that we had spoken about quite a bit. But look, there has been a lot of challenges, and I'm really hoping, in the next couple of years we're kind of going to build back up and get to that stage where we were. But I think, look, we can easily have a New Zealander on the tour card, on the PDC tour. I think we've got guys that definitely have the skill. It's just a lot of effort to literally go to the other side of the world and try do it and risk it all. We've had guys like Cody Harris in the past who has been so close. I think he just missed out on a tour card through the Challenge Tour in the last event. I think there were about 3 guys that he was hoping didn't win, and one of them won. And I think even at Q School he was just short as well, once or twice as well. So I mean, we definitely got the players there. It's just when they go over and give it a crack because of the challenges of COVID that have been over here. So I reckon it'll be a couple of years away before we get one, and when we do, it will really have a massive flow-on effect, think like what you might see in Australia as well. But there's lots of talented players down here. It's just trying to get those opportunities, because it's a big thing moving to the other side of the world to chase a dream.
Yes, a massive commitment. And a couple more before we let you go. Let's look ahead to the New Zealand Darts Masters, and we've seen Damon, he's bumped up to the list of PDC representatives in the draw. So looking at the list of 8 Oceanic representatives that we've got, and you can't say your former co-host Ben Robb, who should we watch out for?
I'm actually really excited to see Darren Penhall.is back up on the stage. He played at 2017 when it was the Auckland Darts Masters, played against Phil Taylor, and he's a guy that he's got a lot of energy, and he loves giving it large. So I'm really hoping he gets drawn against Gilbert Price, and they can just give it large to each other. But Darren is a very talented player. He won the WDF World Cup singles title just before COVID as well in Romania, I think it was. So he's got a lot of talent. He's had a couple of injuries, and he's kind of working his way back up. So really excited to see him, and even Hopai getting back up on stage. Of course, he had the win at Brisbane last year over Johnny Clayton. It's been a while since he's been up on that New Zealand stage, so I'm really hoping the best for him as well.
2 good picks there. And just lastly, before we let you go, you touched on it earlier, your new plans with your YouTube channel, Aimed Straight. So what are your plans for the World Series events coming up? Are you going to be attending as a fan, or are you going to be involved on a press capacity for those events?
I always go on a press capacity, but I always try to sneak on the table and watch a game or two. But I mean, just being there is just a lot of fun, because it's the only real event that we get in this part of the world. So I mean, it's 2 days, so you've got to try and make the most of it. But it's always good having a chat to some of the players, because you don't get those opportunities often. Of course, you get to chat with them over the phone and on Zoom and that, but one opportunity a year we get to see some of these guys and have a good chat with them in the flesh. So it's always good to see some of the players, and some of them are fantastic to talk to. But it's 2 days a year I always look forward to. So I can't wait. It's literally just clock watching, really, and just seeing what's up on the horizon, and just can't wait. Hopefully we get some great results for our Kiwis, but looking forward to seeing, of course, Nathan coming down as the World Match Play Champion, and Danny Noppert, who both haven't been here before, so it's going to be cool seeing those guys too.
Definitely. Well, Ben, it's a pleasure to chat to you. Great to get you on the show and talk to you, and we wish you all the best for the New Zealand Masters. Wish you all the best with the new venture, and for Bradford as well for the season, apart from playing Colchester.
Thanks, guys. It's been a privilege and a pleasure.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former PDC Tour card holder and a man who's going to be making his World Series debut in the upcoming New Zealand Darts Masters. Darren Penhall, thanks very much for joining us again. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for inviting me along.
Great to get you back on, and long-time listeners of the show, they'll remember that we had you on as a guest way back in February 2020, just a few weeks into life as a PDC Tour card holder, and 2.5 years on, a lot's changed. You're now back living in Australia. You've got a World Championship debut coming up at the end of the year. You've got 2 appearances in the World Series coming up as well. So where should we start?
Well, the year's been really unexpected to me. So yeah, you can start where you want, Alex. Yeah, whatever you want to ask for.
Good man. Well, let's circle back to February 2020 when we last had you on, and it was a few weeks into life as a tour card holder. Not long after that, the world shuts down. It was a difficult time for many people, and yourself included. I've got to give a shout out to the DPA website, the interview that you did with them recently, and you mentioned to them that when the tour did resume, we didn't see you in a lot of the events. It was a tough time for you at home. Your dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then your wife became unwell. She was in hospital. So darts at that time, for obvious reasons, it was the furthest thing from your mind then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it surely was, Alex. And obviously it was a very stressful time, and trying to play on the Pro Tour as well was impossible in 2021, and that's why I didn't play in 2021. I've seen stuff in the media, and saying that he's got a tour card, how come he's not playing, and stuff like this. But these things go on behind the scenes, and some people just don't know what's going on. But it was tough times. So obviously that had to come first. So which was a real shame, because when I spoke to you guys last time, that was amazing. When I got my tour card, it was just a fantastic time, and I started really well and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, within the April, it's COVID, and it just went from downhill from there, really. But that's where we are at the minute.
Well, 2022, we do see you go back to Q School, and then you had some success on the Challenge Tour. That got you into some of the Players' Championship events. You got back on the Euro Tour as well. You had that 100 average. You got that first win on the stage. So what did that win mean to you, to put in a performance like that after everything that you'd been through?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Like I said, I was on stage 3 times before that, and I just didn't perform. On those big stages, it's like when you're watching it compared to a floor event, it's so different. The noise, the heat, the cameras, the lights. It's tough. So to actually play well on the big stage was a big turning point for me, and and I think it's that one game has turned me into a lot better player.
Definitely, and after that we see you play a little bit on the Modus League, but in the summer of 2022, you and your wife head back to Australia. You moved to Queensland, and at that point you'd packed your darts away, you said, for the last time. So heading on to that flight, were you content with what you'd achieved in the game, or was there a little part of you that thought maybe one day I'm going to get them out of the case again?
Yeah, I did regret that. I look back that with the COVID and what happened to my wife and my dad, I just didn't get a fair crack at it, and I think if I could have played the 2 years, I think I would have got in the top 64. I really believe that, because I think if I was playing these players week in, week out, I think I would have stayed in there. But it wasn't meant to be, and these things happen, Then obviously, I came back. I was quite happy to pack it in. Really, trying to work and practice every night. It's hard to do, So I was quite happy when I left England that was going to be it, and I promised my wife, because I call her the darts widow, because a lot of players out there, they'll understand, like their wives and stuff, when we was doing like traveling Europe and stuff like that, they don't see you. They come with you sometimes, but it's tough on them as well, So yeah, it's.
And when we spoke last time, we were addressing the rumours from some darts fans. They had you down as Australian, but you were born in Cornwall here in England. Then you moved to Australia for the first time, and I didn't know until I read that interview with the DPA that it was your sister who moved to Australia first, and that's what persuaded you to do the same thing and follow her over. Yeah,
that's right. I was coming here since, early 90s. I think she came out in 89, I think it was, and yeah, I've been coming here since the early 90s really, and always wanted to come here, and eventually I made the move, and that's how I ended up here in 2010. Yeah, so like I say, then obviously my mother was ill and my father-in-law was ill at the time, so that took us back to England, the plan was always to come straight back, but it was, the illnesses were strung out a little bit and stuff, so I started to play a bit of darts, and then I thought, I'll go to Q school, and I didn't make it the first year, but then the second year I did it, and then we was always planning to come back, but then the darts took over and we was trying that, and so we was going to come back earlier, to be honest, but the way things panned out, it didn't happen until last year.
And as you say, whilst you were back in the UK, you went to Q School a few times, and I remember our first chat that we had, you mentioned that before Q School 2020, it was a Christmas present from your wife entered you into that, and you ended up winning your tour card. And again this year, it was someone close to you that got you into another event, your best friend Dave, who's now your boss at work, persuading you to play the first DPA event of 2023. So what was it that twisted your arm to get the darts out again?
When I come back, I think it was September 22. I come back then, and he loves his darts. He watches it like me. I'm a darts fan first of all before I play really, and he's the same. He lives it, and obviously he's watching from over here, and but he's never actually seen me play in the flesh. So as soon as I got here, he said, "Oh, you're gonna play out here," and I said, "No, I'm not going to do it." So I promised the wife, and I said, "I don't want to practice, work 10-hour days and then practice 3 hours every night, make yourself practice." And so I've had enough of it. It's just too much. So, and anyway, he just carried on all the time, just asking me, said like this, and I said no and no and no, and then he invited me round for a Christmas dinner last year, and we had a few drinkies in his bar and stuff, and he talked me into it.
And you've obviously played a little bit on the DPA circuit before, and when we spoke before, you joked that you'd won $45 at a DPA event, and ever since you've been Australian. So what was it like being back on the DPA tour that first weekend after all those years away? Was there anything that surprised you? I was surprised that the standard was so good, to be honest. I went there, and it was just to have a look, really, to keep your mate happy. So I just said, we'll go to the first event. I had about a week's practice or something like that. But I'd go, and I played shocking, I think, the first couple of days. And then Sunday, I managed to win the last event, I think, on the Sunday afternoon somehow. I don't know how I won it, but I did. And since then, the guys on the DPO tour are absolutely great, and the way it's run and everything, it's a great event. It really is a great event. So you kept your mate happy, you played in that first event, and so he could see you play. Fast forward 5 months, 90 odd matches, 19 events, 11 titles later, here you are now possibly rethinking your retirement plans. So is this year going to be the last year for you, or have you got the bug now to keep playing into next year?
To be honest, the whole year was just about a bit of fun, and obviously, as the year's gone on, it started as a bit of fun, but it's got more serious. When you keep winning, and then people are messaging you and saying you should try this and do that. And, the whole thing was just going to be to the end of the year. So at the moment, that's all it is. It's just to the end of the year. Like I say, if I had a decent run at the Worlds, then I may look at it. But apart from that, no. I've had some people message me actually about playing in the seniors, so I may look at that. Perhaps the seniors, I may have a go at qualifying for a couple of events, maybe. If not, that'll probably be it.
Well, we didn't miss speaking that last question to you as well. 11 titles you've won on the DPA Tour in 2023. I don't know if that's a record or not. You might know the answer to that, but what a run you've been on this year. How do you reflect on that amount of success, winning all those titles and the doors that it's opened for you?
Yeah, really. Like when I was on the tour, it was so serious, you know. It felt like you had to get something out of it, so you felt like you was under pressure all the time. But since I've been here and I'm just like travelling with my mate and that, and we've just done it for a laugh. So I think, you know, I've done so well because we've treated it as a bit of fun, you know what I mean? So, and I've actually probably played more consistent, higher averages than I ever did, you know, which you know, I've hit quite a lot of 100+ averages, averaging mid-90s most of the time. So I'm actually playing better darts than I've played all the way along, you know. So it's probably because I'm enjoying it, you know. So yeah, if that answers your question, Alex, then yeah, I'm just enjoying it and enjoying the ride to, you know, see where it goes.
Well, that's what we always say on our show. It is to enjoy the darts. That's always our message. And those 11 titles, that helped you build up that big lead on the Order of Merit, and with some events to spare, you booked that spot at the PDC World Championship. But when you got on that plane to go back to Australia, probably around this time last year, did you ever think you'd be coming back to the UK, going to London, going to Ali Pali to play in the biggest event there is in darts?
No, not at all, mate. It was, even when I was on the Pro Tour, you know, that was the thing. I'd set myself targets, which was to get a tour card, which I'd done. I wanted to do a walk-on, which I'd done, and I wanted to get to the Worlds. And then, obviously, when I lost my tour card and that, and, you know, and I thought, I'm never going to get there now. That was, you know, one thing I wanted to do. And to get the opportunity out of the blue, really, because I wouldn't even expect to be playing this year, you know, it means more than anything, really, because, like I say, it's just unexpected, you know. I just wasn't going to play this year, and, yeah, it's just turned out to be a great year for me personally, you know. So, yeah. So looking forward to the World Championship. Practicing hard at the moment for the World Series. I'm playing really well, to be honest, so I'm hoping to have some good games there. So, yeah, hopefully I can give them a game anyway.
Let's hope so. Well, you mentioned the walk-on there. That is an important part of it. And when we last spoke, it was just before your Euro Tour debut, and you said you were going to walk out to Pink, Raise Your Glass. I was raising my glass when you told us that. A great choice of song. But are you going to stick with that, or are you going to go with something else for the World Series?
Yeah, the World Series. It's been my walk-on for a long time, actually. It's Luke Bryan, Country Girl. It's been for quite a while. Even when I was playing on the Europeans, that's what I was having, Alex. So I've had that for a good couple of years now.
Good to hear. Well, as you say, you've played on the PDC stage, you've played the floor events. This is a step up, playing on the World Series. We don't know who you're going to be playing against. It is going to be one of the PDC's big boys, but how are you feeling as we edge closer to that first one in New Zealand? Excited, nervous, a mixture of both?
Bit of both. I know I'm playing really well, so yeah, you know, I just want to get there and get going, really, because, you know, you get those nerves before you start playing. So once you start playing, you know, you just go into a mode, you know, as long as you're focused and stuff like that. So yeah, I just, you know, like anybody going on the big stage, you just want to play well, you know.
Definitely. And New Zealand first, then you've got the New South Wales Masters in Australia, then it is Ali Pali at the end of the year. But what about your friend, your boss, Dave? Is he going to be in attendance for all of those so he can see you play?
Yeah, he's coming to the World Series with me. England, we haven't spoke about the Ali Pali yet, because obviously that is an expensive trip. So, and obviously it's Christmas time, so family and stuff like that. Obviously he's got a young family, so, you know, I can't really expect him to, you know, probably come with me. But I think the wife's going to come back with me, definitely, for that one. Hopefully he'll make it, but like I say, it's Christmas, family time, and he's got a young family, so that's up to him. If he comes, it would be great, you know. That's
fair enough. Well, lastly, before we let you go, it's an exciting few weeks coming up. Then as we say, Ali Pally to look forward to at the end of the year. But what is the plan for the months in between the World Series and coming back for the Worlds? Have you got any big tournaments lined up? And I guess when you're in the UK, I know it's probably a little bit too early to say, but are you going to be looking to play any events, maybe get back on the Modus League? What is the plan?
The Modus League, I actually, I haven't been invited to play on it again, but, if I was back end of November or something like that, if they wanted me to play on it, I'd probably be quite welcome to come along and play. It'd be great practice before the Worlds, because that's the problem I'm going to have here, because I think the events finish, the main, I think there's 4 events left in September, then October, I think it got the Oceanic Masters, and then only like 2 events. So to be honest, the last event in October, it wouldn't pay for me to go there even, because you'd end up losing money just to turn up. So probably the September one I'll definitely go to, but that's the problem, is going to be play any competitive darts will be the problem here towards the end of the year. But it's never really worried me, because, when I won my tour card, I wasn't even playing in a darts league. So, I was just practicing in the garage, so it doesn't really affect like that, so, and, so, I'm a lot better player now, so I know what to expect, and, I'll be tough to beat, I think.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you play again, Darren. It's a pleasure to get you back on the show. We appreciate the time, and congratulations on what you've achieved so far this year, and we wish you all the best for those World Series events, and of course the big one at the end of the year, the World Championship as well.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
Attention all dart enthusiasts, this is ZR, your host from In The Mud Sports, and I have an exciting announcement for you. Are you ready to take your darting experience to the next level? Introducing In The Mud Sports, the premier online darts league for amateurs like yourself. We're not your typical darts league, it's an experience like no other. It's where you can showcase your skills, make new friends, and have an absolute blast. We have a vibrant community where camaraderie is key and darts meets pure enjoyment. Whether you're a singles player or love the excitement of team events, In The Mud Sports has got you covered. We are perfect for amateurs who want to have fun and improve their game along the way. It is your time to shine. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to elevate your darting experience and join 80 plus players from all around the world. Together we'll create unforgettable moments on and off the Oche. You can catch all updates about where we are going live next through Twitter and Instagram at In The Mud Sports. See you guys there.
I'm pleased to say we're joined by the water boy H2 Joe Comito. Thanks for the time again, Joe. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. And it's been almost a year since we first had you on the show ahead of your World Series debut. Fast forward 12 months, here we are again. You're getting ready for a second crack at the big stage, the New South Wales Masters. How are you feeling less than 2 weeks now before you make that walk for a second time?
I think this time it's a lot better due to the fact that we've been going to the DPA circuit all year, so you've actually had to earn it every time, and where the other one was only a week, and even though I played good the whole week, it's just I think I'm just in a better position than I was last year.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about the DPA tour this year, the changes that there's been, but there is lots to catch up on since we last spoke. And let's start with that debut in the World Series last year, and not the result you would have wanted, losing 6-0 to Michael Smith. He's now the world number 1, the world champion, but he did average 104 against you in that game, so pretty hard to play against. But for you, what were the overriding feelings you had as you walked off stage at the end of the game?
Oh, look, it was what it was, and end of the day, I probably did a couple of things wrong that day that this year I'll do different. Playing last, it was a long day, and it's a whole separate preparation when you got a whole day up through the day, and then you got to play last, and everyone else is going up. But end of the day, he was just way too good, and like I keep telling the boys here, if you beat me on TV, you become world champion.
That's a good record to have, and we know we know some players, if they can, they like to go and watch their games back. With it being your first time on TV, did you go and watch the game with Michael back to help you learn from it, or how did you analyse or take in that first experience on the big stage?
To me, it's not what I did on stage. It was more of what I thought was going to happen and what I did that day. And even just like watching the other boys go up, and because you're just not used to doing that, like getting there so early, then waiting. So it was like 4 hours of just trying, like having talks and practice and stuff like that. We're not used to playing like that. We're used to playing a lot of darts in a day. So I've learned a lot on that part, and hopefully that's what will help me this year, is knowing what to do a bit better beforehand rather than on stage. And I think I'm more comfortable with the way I'm playing now than I did then anyway, because I've played a lot more darts, and going over once a month makes a lot of difference as well.
Definitely. And you said afterwards that playing on the World Series, that had spurred you on to come back, and in your own words you said, "You'll see me again, I guarantee it." So I'm guessing even though the result didn't go your way, just the feeling of being up on that stage, being involved, playing the world's best, you'd had a taste of it, you wanted to do it again and try and improve next time.
Yeah, 100%. Even going back to like my local leagues and stuff like that, with all my mates, ones that play, and like Brenton that's made it. First thing I said to all them is, you've got to do it. Like, it's just an experience as a dart player. You got to do it, and then once you do it once, you want to do it again. And that's, you talk to anyone that's done it, that's their thing. Once they do it once, they want to do it again, and you want to test yourself. You want to know where you are, if you need to get better, even if you could go to the next level, sort of thing. That's all the experience, and hopefully this year it improves even more.
Yeah, by the time the World Series came around last year, the DPA Tour had pretty much wrapped up for 2022. There was the Oceanic Masters, the qualifier to get into the Worlds. But what else did you get up to during those final 4 months of 2022?
Well, we had the Bunbury Classic, which I won that one. We had a recent one, like where it's Southwest, which is where we come from. I won that one as well. During the summer, I don't do much. Like, once all the tournaments are finished, because we play so much darts through the year. But like from the start of this year, you sort of just you lock in. It becomes pretty serious. By the time you finish one, there's another one, and then just heaps of practice at the end of the day. So I won a few tournaments, and I won a DPA. A DPA, made a heap of finals against Darren, and kept pushing him to as much as I could. It's been pretty good year since the World Series last year.
Yeah, let's get on to 2023, and we saw the DPA Tour, it become unified again. The previous couple of years we'd had the satellite tour. The tour was split into regions and bubbles, and I remember you saying to us last time that having the satellite tour, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have been playing in the World Series. So how are you feeling coming into this year with the tour merging together again?
Oh, look, it's don't get me wrong, for where we live to where we got to go is a long day for travelling. It's a bit of an expensive experience, but if I didn't think I could do it, I wouldn't do it. And like I keep saying, those boys as well, the idea of you've got to play the better players. The only way we're going to get better, even as a country, as all the local players in Australia, to compete against the guys when they come over, and if anyone wants to go to England, is play each other. Because in the day, like the top players, there is a higher standard, but we just don't get to play each other as often as people in England. And like, they have tournaments every day, we're playing each other, and that's how you get better. Like I keep telling people, you either get better or you quit at the end of the day, because I don't like losing, and so if I'm playing better people, I'm going to get better. That's the bottom dollar of it. Yeah,
definitely. And looking at how the DPA Tour went this year, you missed the first weekend of the season, but you more than made up for that during the rest of it, winning a title, making 4 other finals as well. You finished 4th on that order of merit. So how would you reflect on the campaign? Were you happy with it?
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong, there was a couple of moments where I thought I just didn't. It wasn't playing bad, just didn't finish games, and other people played well. But overall, I'm very happy with what I've done. It's the standard that I've done over the whole year. That's more what I'm proud of, more than anything, rather than just one occasion like winning one or making the 4 finals. Is I've been pretty consistent every game. Like at that mark, I haven't really dropped off at all, and that becomes playing them more often. Like I said, but no, I'm happy where I am.
Good to hear. And the title that you won as well, you mentioned about pushing Darren Penhall, who's been the main man this year on the tour. In that final, you beat him with a 95 average. So for you, how pleasing was that performance, especially given the dominance that we've seen from Darren winning 11 titles, to get the better of him and a high level as well that you showed in that game?
Well, he beat me the Saturday night, and I was like, nah, you're not doing that again. Like, I can't... even though he's beaten me heaps times after that, but and the next one, I actually feel quite comfortable playing him because it's one of the things when you know you're playing a good player, I don't seem to panic, because if they hit a good score, you just expect it. You're not thinking, oh, how do you do that? And with Darren, I just like playing the guy. Like, all our games have been like high averages, and not even that. Like, he just took out massive pegs on me, and just it's been a really good tussle actually. With every time we meet each other.
And it was only a few weeks ago on the DPA tour we saw you throw a 9-darter as well. I think it was the first leg of a match. So how do you come down from a massive high like that? And for us mere mortals who will probably never throw a perfect leg, what is that feeling like?
For one, you don't come down from it. That was my problem with that game. It took me about 4 legs, and I was just, and because going into that game, I was like, yeah, I'm confident, I'm relaxed. Hit the 177, I was like, yeah. Hit the 180, I was like, yep, still nothing. 60-60, and the double 12, I started feeling it. And when I hit it, it was just like, and then just trying to get that adrenaline down, that was hard. That was, yeah, I wish, like I said to Brando, I wish it was the last leg, not the first leg, because it's hard after one leg. But it was, like I said to some of the boys here, that was probably the one last thing, besides probably playing out of Worlds, that I wanted to accomplish, and I've done that now. So there's not much can't say that I haven't done that I thought I wouldn't do any of it, to be honest, when I first started playing darts. But once you do start, then you hope you do tick off a few boxes, and that was pretty much one of my last ones. So no, that was good. It was a good feeling.
Special moment. We saw the picture of you with the dartboard from that 9-dart game. Have you got any plans on what you're going to do with the board?
Well, some of the boys, like they said, what are you going to do? So I haven't even thought about it. One of them actually said, why don't you get someone to make you a table and put a glass base on it and then have the dartboard inside that? I said, that's not a bad idea. So, no, so I haven't done anything yet. It's just in the hanged up in the shed at the moment. But yeah, but that there sounded like a good idea.
Yeah, nice memento anyway. And your results on the DPA Tour has got you that return to the World Series. You had a fairly big lead in the end on 5th on the order of merit. Were you confident going into that final weekend that you'd get a spot, or were you sweating it out for a little bit?
Nah, sweating it out. You never know. There's so many good dart players, like, they can just reel off game after game, and if you're not on, or someone else is not on, and it just proves that when you're not at 100% or doing or concentrating or think, you get beat, and that's the bottom dollar of it all. We brought a friend over at the end, and he was playing. He goes, "Oh, it's a bit. Yeah, this is a bit hard." So, well, this is no mucking around when you're here. If you get even the thing, you get beaten. If you're not 100%, you get beaten. There's no easy games. And so, nah, definitely not ever feel confident. But that's a good thing as well, because it also makes you try. Definitely.
Well, let's get on to your second World Series appearance coming up. We don't know the draw yet when we're talking, but we know the lineup of players. Do you fancy a rematch with the now world number 1 world champion Michael Smith? We've also got the world match play champion Nathan Aspinall. Any thoughts on who you'd like to go up against?
No, not really. I'm not the one. I kind of the ones that I want the best, because I want to. At the end of the day, they're all great players. And even Damo switched over. I even messaged him the other day, told him he switched over to the dark side because he's with those boys now. And he was laughing about it. So, look, end of the day, it's up to what you do, because you know what they're going to do. So at the end of the day, it's in your hands, not theirs. They're going to throw what they throw every week, and either you're going to do it or you don't at the end of the day.
Yeah, we spoke with your teammate, your workmate Brenton Lloyd. It's going to be his debut in the event, and he was saying that he used to be a former teammate of Damon Hare. Did you play with him as well at all?
Yeah, we actually, I think it was, we played in one of my first in under 25, so he would have been probably 6, I don't even think he was 18, and me and him won a doubles together back in the day. We actually, on the way, beat Cole and Bo Anderson, and So yeah, and we actually played together then. So yeah, way back before when I was better than him, now he's better than me.
Very nice. Well, beyond the World Series, what is the plan for the rest of 2023? We know we've got the Oceanic Masters later in the year. Any other big events in the diary? What have you got your eye on darts-wise?
It's the Oceanic in October. We're not coming over for September. We have one in September, but we're not coming over for that one. Then we've got Oceanic in October. Then there's one in Bunbury, and then that's 2023 done. Then we have a bit of a rest and work out the calendar for next year at the end of the day. Unless don't get me wrong, there is pop-up ones that come along, but they haven't been released, the dates or anything like that, so you don't know. But at the focus at the moment is Oceanic, and there's one in Bunbury.
Well, good luck with trying to defend that one at the end of the year. And you touched on it as well about things that you're trying to tick off in darts, and I guess the World Championship is one of the big ones left to do. So winning that Oceanic Masters would get you into that field. So what would it mean to win that event and get to the World Championship?
Oh, that would be the final thing. Like I said to the boys, when I hit the 9 data, I'd be happy to quit now, because pretty much I've accomplished anything that I've ever thought I was going to do. But to do a World Championship, that's the end. That's the end. And then, but don't get me wrong, if I did do a World Champion, I would stay over and have a go at Q School. Don't get me wrong, if that ever did occur, that'd be the first thing I'll do. So if it did go to the World Championship, that would be the plan for sure, to stay over until Q School.
Well, hopefully that will happen one day. And lastly, that debut in the World Series 12 months ago, you walked out to DJ Khaled, All I Do Is Win. Are you sticking with that song this year, and what would it mean to get that first win in the World Series and do what you walk on says?
No, I changed the songs. I'm Unstoppable this year, the song is. And to get one, I still remember last year Damo said to me when he played his first World Championship, he lost 6-0 and then he won his next one. So don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting to do that, but anything can happen. You got to go with that attitude that anything can happen. At the end of the day, like you said, I played Darren with a 95 in a final, so why can't I do it then? I've had hundreds in the DPA in games, so it's there. It's just a matter of doing it when it matters at the end of the day, like anything else, like any other dart player in any other comp.
Joe, it's a pleasure to get you back on the show. We appreciate you taking out the time, and congratulations again on getting back into the World Series, and fingers crossed you're going to be unstoppable that weekend and for the rest of the year as well.
No worries, thank you very much. Thanks for the phone call.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of the World Series debutants in the upcoming New South Wales Darts Masters, Brenton Lloyd. Thanks for the time, Brenton. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on, and we're talking less than 2 weeks now before you make that big stage debut in the World Series. So how are you feeling as we edge closer to that day? Excited? A few nerves? Has it fully sunk in?
Yeah, it took a little bit to sink in after I won the qualifier. More excited than anything at the moment. I think the nerves will kick in maybe an hour or two before going on stage, but hopefully not too much.
Definitely. Well, we'll come back to the World Series a bit later, but as it is the first time that we've had you on our show as a guest, let's give our listeners some background on yourself. So how old are you, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
I'm 31 years old. I live in a little town in Bunbury, Western Australia. It's a couple of hours south of Perth. And work in new houses doing walls and ceilings, and actually work with Comito, who's also playing in the World Series. So,
switching to the darts then, going right back to the very start, how old were you when you first discovered the game, and how did you get introduced to it?
Well, probably about 11, 12 when I picked up darts. I used to see my dad practicing and going out on weeknights to go play in local league darts, and kind of caught an interest into practicing with him. And then he said, "Oh, you're not too bad at this," and took me into a summer league comp down in Bunbury, and I just pretty much played darts since then. And yeah, so about nearly 20 years I've probably been throwing.
Nice. And have you always played darts then? Have you had any breaks at all during that time?
I had a break probably 2017, 18, a couple of years. I had a couple of years off. But then slowly been building back into it now and getting back into full practice. starting to get a bit of reward for effort, which is good.
Yeah, we can definitely see that. And growing up in Australia, then there's a lot of big sports other than darts. Were you into any other sports at all, or was it always the darts?
Yeah, well, we got Australian rules football over here, obviously, so I played that as a junior, and I think once it got to, I was about 18, 19, I knew I was a lot better at darts than I was at that, so I gave that up and went more towards the darts, and trying to get in the West Australian team and stuff like that as a young kid was more of my goal.
You mentioned watching your dad playing leagues, you playing in youth tournaments, so what were the opportunities for you growing up and getting into adult life playing darts? Was it leagues, tournaments, team events? What did you get involved in?
Yeah, a lot of started off in your local nights, and then not really understanding, because being young, how big of the game was, even in Australia, let alone over in England. So once I got introduced into travelling up to Perth and playing there, it opened up my eyes to the opportunities you can have and stuff like that. And then that made me practice more and really go trying to set little goals every year and then tick them off one by one.
As well as playing darts, then, is it something that you'd follow as well, the PDC side of it? Australia's had some successful players over the years. Have you followed that as well?
Yeah. Well, when it's, because sometimes it's not until 3 a.m, so you don't really get to catch it live. But I keep an eye on the Facebook page and the results, and if it's on at a good time, I'll watch it. I'll try and keep up watching Damon Header as well, because obviously him being from a similar place, I've shared a team with him for Western Australia, and it's always good to follow someone you're friends with and see what they're doing.
Here in the UK, as darts fans, we think of darts in Australia, aside from the players that are competing on the tour that qualify for the World Championship, play in the World Series. We know the DPA circuit is well known as well. So when did you start to explore that avenue of playing on that tour?
When it was probably 10 years, when I was about 21, I used to go around state in Australia. And when it come to Perth, I used to play in it, but I've never done a full calendar year of the actual tour until this year. So I've favoured it, on and off, but this is my first year committing to the DPA calendar. So, and it's been a good year, the first year into it.
The last few years, obviously, with the pandemic, darts has been impacted by that, and fair to say Australia a lot longer than some other countries. 2021, we see the DPA Pro Tour is split into bubbles to reduce the travelling. You've been playing in the Western Australia bubble. You won a title. You've got to a few finals. So I guess, how did you find those couple of years playing in the bubble?
The bubble was good, but I think it wasn't too bad for us because there's a lot of talent in Western Australia. But I think it is a lot better to be back now, not in the bubble, and playing against even more better talent. And you want to get better, and you want to play against better dart players. So trying to get everyone together, which is not easy in Australia, being a big country, but I enjoyed the bubble. I think the bubble probably what gave me motivation to play in this year's DPA. So it wasn't all bad. It was pretty good.
Well, this year we've seen the tour unified once again. You mentioned this is the first year that you're fully committed to that tour, and how have you found it being back to just the one-hole tour? You've had some success. I think I was looking earlier, 2 finals, 3 more semi-finals, 6 more quarter-finals. You've had a lot of deep runs this year.
Yeah, I found it really good, and I just wanted to see where I was at this year, to be honest. I only got back into proper practicing, and my goal was really just if I could finish top 10 and match it with the top players, I was going to play again next year. And like you said, I've had a few deep runs. I probably should have won a couple more finals. So I've really enjoyed it, and it's making me practice more and get into it more. And I really, before the last World Series qualifier, I really did get into the practice board because I really wanted to win that Friday night, and it paid off. So I'm loving it, and I'll definitely be back doing it next year and hopefully improving even more.
Good to hear. Well, let's mention that World Series qualifier because it wasn't a title, but it was the best run that you've had earlier this month, winning through that 4th and final qualifier to book that debut on the World Series. So what was that moment like when you won the final and you knew you were in?
I think I had about 2 or 3 nervy darts at double 8 when I was thinking about it a bit, and then when I pegged at 8, I relaxed myself and put it away. And I think it took about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours for it to actually kick in that I'd done it, because I was playing well and I was really focused on the night. But it took a bit to kick in, but when it did, it was honest, over the moon. You're excited, you're happy, a bit surreal. You work hard to try and do it, and when it actually happens, it's a bit of a surprise. But yeah, I can't wait, man. It was when the peg went in, it was great. I'm just now I'm looking forward. Now I just want to get there and then give it a go.
Yeah, it was a great run to win that qualifier, especially the latter rounds. A lot of one-sided games, but we've got to mention the first round against Daniel Pearson. It goes to a decider. He busts on 80. Firstly, how did he bust the 80 if you saw it? And secondly, coming through a close one right off the bat like that, what did that do for you? Did it settle any nerves? Did it spur you on? How did the rest of the day go after that?
Well, I think with Daniel, he's a really heavy scorer, and we're both scoring heavy, and both probably were not very good in our doubles throughout most of the game. And I think he went triple 20, and he dropped right down in the middle of the double 15. So unfortunately, he passed it that way for him. But that game, I think it was the first game of the night. We're both scoring heavy, but we're both a bit tense and nervous on the doubles, finishing off the game. But once I got through that game and tidied up and I knew how well I was scoring once I tidied up my doubles, I was confident the rest of the night, really, to be honest. But that was, a bit of luck goes your way, and then you take it, I guess.
Yeah, and you make the most of it. You win that qualifier, and you're in the World Series. And when it comes to TV debuts, there's a lot to organise. You're going to get the big walk-on from the PDC Master of Ceremonies, John McDonald. So have you made the most important decision yet? Have you decided on a walk-on, and also do you have a nickname already?
Well, I don't really have any, nicknames anyone calls me at darts. So I've just gone by my surname. People call me Lloydie, so I've just got Lloydie. Because like you said, it's the last qualifier, so I've not had much time to get everything jammed in and to the PDC with the information they need. I've got a song by Tiesto that I've sent through to them, and I haven't been told it's been denied, so I assume it's been accepted. But I had to have a shirt designed real quick as well, so it's all been a little bit of a rush, but it's good.
We were having a think earlier about possible nicknames if you didn't have one, and Lloyd in darts, there is the famous Colin Lloyd, so maybe the Australian Jaws could be an option.
Well, it used to be one of my dad's favourite back when Colin was number one in the world. Dad used to share in the surname.
Good stuff. Well, a special occasion, making that walk for the first time, being on TV, your home World Series event. So what's the reaction been like back home these last few weeks since you qualified? Has your phone stopped yet with messages?
Especially straight after I won it, my phone was all night. I was going off and support, and I've been nothing but support from everyone back home, especially all the local people I grew up around back in Bunbury Darts. It's been really good. The phone's just every day there's something new popping up about it, and it's good, but it's really good, and it keeps you excited and you keen. But it is to get to that point now where you want to get there and experience it.
Definitely. And how about your friends and family then? Are you going to be bringing quite a few of you for that occasion for the World Series?
I'll be coming. I know my dad's 100% coming over. One of my friends might be coming as well. But I know the rest of my family back home watching together. And but Dad will be with me, and he's been there since day one, since got me on the practice board, and so he will love to experience that in person. We
don't know the draw when we're talking a couple of weeks away, but we know that you're going to be up against one of those PDC stars in the first round, and maybe it could be your former teammate, Damon Hetter. He's moved into the list of PDC representatives. So is there anyone you're dreaming of playing, or are you happy to take any of them on?
No, there's no one in particular, no. Look, they're all absolutely brilliant dart players, and they're all playing well. I just think playing any one of them will be an experience that I'll enjoy, and even if it is Damon, the Damon I used to play with at WA is a whole other different beast now in the PDC, so even that'll be a fun and good experience as well. But I'm not bothered at who it is. I'm just trying to enjoy it no matter what. It's a front row seat and a game against one of the best in the world, so it doesn't get much better than that.
No, it doesn't. And just lastly, before we let you go, beyond the debut on the World Series, what else has 2023 got in store for you? Are there any other big events in the diary you're most looking forward to? And I guess looking further ahead, any future aspirations in darts you'd like to try and achieve?
I think I'll be skipping the DPA in September. Just due to a lot of travelling in the last few months over and back to Sydney and back. Then we've got the Oceanic in October. Obviously, it's quite a big tournament to get. The winner of that goes to Alexander Palace. But next year, again, will be straight back into the DPA calendar and to give it a go and try and finish higher up the order of merit again and try and get close to that number one spot and get more consistent, you know.
Well, we wish you all the best with that, Brenton. It's a pleasure to get you on the show. Congratulations on qualifying for your first World Series, and wish you all the best for that debut and what else is to come in 2023 as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I can't wait.
Thanks again to our guests for joining us on the show this week. Thanks to Ben, Darren, Joe and Brenton for their time. We spoke to all four of those on a Saturday a couple of weeks ago, so I appreciate all of those guys for taking some time out of their weekend to have a chat with us. Best of luck to all three of them that are going to be playing on that stage over the next 2 weekends. And that's all the time we've got for you on this week's episode. As always, got to say a big thank you to everyone for listening. We appreciate the continued support of the show. And also, big thank you to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, you know where to go, dartwolf.tv. And if you still call it Twitter, do go and give Dartwolf a follow on there as well, at Dartwolf180. We're not sure if we're going to be back next week. We might take the week off and come back the following week after the World Series has finished up down under. We might be back, so do keep an eye out if we are. If not, we will see you in a couple of weeks. So as Burton would say if he was here, hang tight for the next episode. And as I'd say, because we have got darts coming up this weekend and next week as well with the World Series, enjoy the darts.